What was the relationship between Radha and Krishna? What was the relationship between the gopis and Krishna? Why that tremendous attraction?
Narad Muni, he goes one day and he sees a lot of gopis sitting and they're doing sadhana, and he gets very shocked. And then the gopis say that, you don't even know Krishna, he just doesn't let us be alone. Everywhere he's disturbing us.
See, the gopis, as it is described in Bhagavatam, they feigned all kinds of irritation, anger and everything, all kinds of emotions towards Krishna, just because the dearness which they had for Krishna in their hearts, just to hide that. They would go and complain to Yashoda, he stole butter from my place. Actually, they want him to come and steal butter. You do not know the bhav of the gopis and Krishna. It is difficult to practice bhakti. All kinds of thoughts will keep coming into the mind. Love only comes into the heart which is pure.
Why do you think it's so important to have an Isht?
So when you repeat a mantra, you are initiated into, it will generate a level of intensity within you which will remove all obstacles of your mind. Suppose you are repeating a Krishna mantra, you will get his vision.
Namaste, Pravrajika Divyananda Pranaji. Welcome to Under the Tree show.
Thank you.
We really want this conversation to be only dedicated to Bhakti Yoga, the path of love and devotion. Can you talk about why, especially in this time and age, in this Kali Yuga, why Bhakti is so important for us?
Please.
Because love is the most important thing in our lives.
Wow, beautifully said.
Any doubt about that?
No, it's not at all.
Just realizing what true love is very
Yes,
important.
true love. See, love is the most transforming, elevating, unifying and liberating experience of life. If it is pure, which means if it is not for selfish ends, that love itself transforms you completely and it satisfies you completely. So that's the beauty of love. And you see, actually when a person is in love, if you watch that state of mind, it is rushing towards the object of love, the beloved, without any hesitation, without any training. No such thing is required. The mind goes and plunges into the object of devotion. And it's spontaneous, it's natural. It is its own phala. You don't, out of love, you are not expecting anything. That's why I said love should be pure.
And unconditional.
Unconditional and unselfish. So when all these characteristics are there in love, it becomes a magical agent for transforming any person. Bhakti is this. See, the very definition, I love a beautiful definition of bhakti by Madhusudan Saraswati. I have used it often. Shrutasya bhagavad dharma dharvahikam gataha sarvesha manovrittaya bhakti iti abhidiyate. Which means without any effort on your part, when your entire mind goes and plunges into the beloved, you are not at all doing anything. You are not exercising anything. It's happening by itself. What a state of mind that must be. That is bhakti. When the object of devotion is really divine, you will get divinized automatically. Love is the greatest transforming power in the world. Only we are abusing it in various ways and calling that also love.
Yeah, true.
That's why purity is at the heart of love. If that is there, love is the thing. Who doesn't want it and who is not capable of it? Sri Ramakrishna used to say, Bhakti Shar, it's the essence of life. And it is especially the path for this age. Because maybe, see, the avatar knows what we will mess up with. This is the age of messing up with emotions. So that's the message. Bring clarity there, bring purity there, and use this great power within you.
Wow, beautifully said. And in Bhakti Yoga, why do you think it's so important to have an Isht?
Yes, Isht is the actually focus of your devotion.
Okay.
If you do not have an Ishta Devata, today you like Ganesh, tomorrow you like Krishna, day after tomorrow you like Shiva. And our affection, devotion gets divided, sort of. You are not focusing on one thing. But if you take an Ishta Devata, you will find characteristics of all deities in him. Yes, a completely fulfilled individual, a completely fulfilled, awakened mind has all those perfect perfect characteristics in it, isn't it? So the Ishta Devata embodies this supreme perfection for everyone. And yet our mind has particular inclinations towards how the object of love should be. Preferences. So you choose according to your preference. Ishta Devata is very important in Bhakti Sadhana.
Paramahansa Ramakrishna's relationship with Ma Kali, how did he view Bhakti as a way of transcendence, or how did he view this concept of love in Bhakti?
See, Bhakti requires I and you. Duality. It begins with duality, but actually love is non-dual. Because it takes you to a stage where it is the experience of a shared being. Love is the experience of a shared being. So you see Sri Ramakrishna's devotion to Mother Kali. When he actually has her vision, after so much of spiritual practice and devotion and crying for Mother, when he actually has her vision, how does he describe it? He describes her as a mass of consciousness. Have you read that?
No, we weren't.
As light, the luminosity of light that engulfed him, as a mass of consciousness. Which means, that's why I said love is non-dual.
Because there's no you and I, basically.
You have transcended that stage. Not that you have obliterated that stage. You have transcended it. It begins with you and I. But it takes you to the very dizzy heights of non-duality.
Is there a specific, when we talk about Bhakti Yoga, a specific meditation that one can follow? I know Japa meditation is one that's very, very popular, whether it's a Hare Krishna mantra or a mantra given by your guru. What is the power specifically of Japa and reciting that holy name?
Oh, it's very important. In fact, only they rely on name. If you actually study the psychology of the human mind, you will see we are very name sensitive. We start identifying with our own names, and names matter a lot to us. The picture of a thing comes into your mind when you use the name. So, Nam Sadhana is very important. In all Vaishnava traditions, they will insist on japa, the repetition of the divine name. The mantra itself has its intrinsic power. Don't think that when I do it, it builds power. No, it has its intrinsic power which comes from the Guru. So when you repeat a mantra, you are initiated into. It will generate a level of intensity within you which will remove all obstacles of your mind. The only obstacles of spiritual life are those created by the mind. The self has no obstacles, by the way. Okay, it's only mind. Sadhana, that is why it's in the mind, for the mind, to remove these obstacles. And once you are able to do japa effectively, Holy Mother Sri Sharda Devi used to say, Japat Siddhi, Japat Siddhi, Japat Siddhi. What it means is it will take you directly into the experience of the deity, the consciousness of the deity. Suppose you're repeating a Ram Krishna mantra or Krishna mantra, you will get his vision.
If you keep on repeating it.
But do you feel like, at least from your point of view, that japa is the best form of meditation? Or do you think because a lot of different, techniques are there, there's silence meditation, visualization, and nowadays, I mean, it's all over the world. It's like thousands of different kinds.
Yeah.
What would you advise? Do you believe that one particular kind of meditation can be easier for someone? Should it be like that the technique overall should be better? Or do you feel like how it depends on the person to person, like how one relates to this technique? If one feels like they have a better experience with this meditation technique, they should go for that. But if they feel like, they're more of a visualization being, I want to do this silence meditation, I'll go for that. Yeah. What is your take on that?
Yeah, see, the method, the technique is person specific. Depends on your nature, what you are sensitive to. Some people are sensitive to light, some to sound. In that sound also, some people are sensitive to the name. And they are sensitive to particular deities only.
Yeah.
All Vaishnava traditions, because their self-image is deeply connected with that image of that deity. In fact, Vaishnava teachers will actually give you a self-image, how you will relate with that deity. So you must find out your path. That is important. Bhakti sadhana, I told you, starts with I and you. Build a really mature I so you can relate with the really mature you.
Wow. Very good.
Deity. Yeah, that matters.
And dealing with, I know a lot of people, say that one main problem they have with japa is if they really want to recite the name, but because the mind, I think we have like 16,000 thoughts a day, it does become difficult a lot of times. Even when I started mantra, it was difficult in the sense that sometimes you would get different thoughts and then you would feel like in a way disloyal to that mantra because you're not able to focus on it.
Correct.
How to go about that?
See, the main problem, obstacle in bhakti sadhana is our messing up with our own emotions, our emotional life. If it is not, straight, if it is not pure, it is difficult to practice bhakti. All kinds of thoughts will keep coming into the mind. How will you sort of put them aside? So that is why even for bhakti, you must remember love only comes into the heart which is pure. And it liberates that heart. Otherwise, it's a transaction. It's a business. Business is no bhakti.
That you're praying that you give me this and I'll...
Yes, see, Vivekananda very beautifully said, love is like a triangle, the triangle of love. You might have heard of it.
In his Bhakti
Yes, in
book, I
Bhakti
read
Yoga.
about it, yes.
Love knows no fear, love knows no barter, and love is always the highest ideal for the lover.
True.
How true these three angles are, you see.
It's very true.
There can be no barter in love. If there's a transaction, you will fall short of the experience.
There's a story about Narad Muni, how he goes one day and he sees a lot of gopis, sitting and they're doing sadhana, and he gets very shocked. He says that, gopis, what are you doing? You said bhakti was the highest. You said you love Krishna. Why are you doing sadhana? Why are you meditating? And then the gopis say that, you don't even know that Krishna, he just doesn't let us be alone. Everywhere he's disturbing us. I'm in the kitchen cooking for my kids and he's pulling my, what is it? Hair. And then he's not letting me do any work in the household. If I don't do meditation, I need to just, get myself away from him. So can you describe that emotion and that feeling that the gopis are having towards Krishna?
See, the gopis, as it is described in Bhagavatam and all that, they feigned all kinds of irritation, anger and everything, all kinds of emotions towards Krishna, just because the dearness which they had for Krishna in their hearts, just to hide that. They would feign all this. They would say, oh, I'm irritated, he did this, he did that. They would go and complain to Yashoda, he stole butter from my place. Actually, they want him to come and steal butter.
They want to see
him. Love is, you want to keep it hidden. See, all this open expression of love means there's no love. If something you have very precious in your heart, what will you do about it? Tell me.
You'll preserve it.
You'll preserve it. You'll protect it. You'll keep it hidden. The more you keep it hidden, the more it will grow. So when they are using such things, these gopikas, you should know for certain the emotion in the mind is only pure love. Otherwise, will anybody allow their braids to be pulled by... Gopi Leela, na? The gopikas, what they felt for Krishna, it must be understood in different light. See, this question arises in the Bhagavat only. Bhagavatam, there's one interpretation of it where Parikshit is asking Shukdev, the narrator of the Bhagavat, he's asking him, Parikshit had only 7 days to live, so he wanted to hear the Leela of the Lord. So the Bhagavat was given to him. Okay. Now Shukdev is expounding the Bhagavat and Parikshit stops him after the Dasham Skand, the Leela of Lord Krishna. He stops him and says, okay, tell me one thing, O sage. The avatar comes to establish righteousness in the world. Krishna came to establish righteousness in the world, but he played with so many cowherd girls. He drew them to him in the dead of the night. He did all this. Some of them were wives of other men. So what kind of righteousness is this? Parikshit asks Shukdev. Then Shukdev says, look, Parikshit, don't view the Krishna Leela with mundane eyes. You do not know the bhav of the gopis and Krishna. The gopis saw only the divine Sachidananda in Krishna. Is there in Gopi Gita? Na khalu Yashoda Nandanod Bhavan Akhila Dehinam Antaratmadrik. They say, you are the Antaratmadrik of all beings. This is how they viewed Krishna. And how did Krishna view them? These gopis were so utterly pure because they were actually mighty rishis
Right.
who had attained the highest realization but wanted to taste love. So they were born as gopikas in Vrindavan, in Vrajabhumi. And so he saw such purity and clarity in them. He saw his own mirror image in them. So he was playing with himself from his standpoint. That's why he felt such a unity with them, everything he did with them. And they felt he's their very own Atman, Antaryami he is. That is why the Gopi Leela is so intense and so elevating. It should not be understood through mundane eyes. Vivekananda used to say this, that only after attaining great purity of mind, you must try to understand what was the relationship between Radha and Krishna, what was the relationship between the gopis and Krishna, why that tremendous attraction. Do you think a sullied mind, an impure mind will have this kind of attraction? It's more than magnetic.
Right. Only a pure mind.
Oh, pure mind will feel it.
And that's why there's another story of the gopis where I think Krishna is very, very unwell, and the only thing that can cure him, yeah. And so that's like the dust of the feet, and I think everyone is can reject scared to give it. Like, how can you put, your feet? That's not right. It's not appropriate. But except the gopis, they didn't have any hesitation. It's almost like kind of the pure love between a mother and a child. Because in that situation, a mother wouldn't hesitate. She wouldn't care about what's embarrassing, what's right or wrong. She would just save the child. That purity of love is very, very important to have. And one other story of Krishna that recently I found out, and I think it's a very beautiful symbolism that why does Lord Krishna, he has a flute touching his lips. So for everyone who knows, the instrument, the flute, is empty inside, it's hollow, which if we think about it, it symbolizes that there is no ego. So in order for us to connect with Lord Krishna, for us to get close to him and have him as a personal, we must drop our mind-body attachment and become egoless and become nothing.
Dropping attachment,
That's very, very important. And I think that's a kind of the core message of bhakti, and how you can transcend with that path as well.
Intense love will come only if you're free within yourself. That's why Sri Ramakrishna used to say the highest knowledge and the highest devotion are the same thing. You're free within yourself, and that's why it fills up with divine love. Love itself is divine. Although we use the expression divine love, pure love itself is divine.
To end the episode, we'll bring Krishna here as well.
Love.
Our family in personal has Lord Krishna as a family member only. And I think we can vouch on the fact that without him, its life wouldn't have been complete. That power of love cannot be matched by anything else.
Exactly. The sweetness of life lies in bhakti.
And it's so beautiful hearing these words from you. It was just a complete, knowing everything from all the four paths, and having so much compassion and love in your heart. Thank you so much, Mataji.
Thank you for having you here. It was a delight to visit you.
Thank you so much.